live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.
Benny Ricciardi is here to break down the day's betting board for you.
Let's go, Jerry. Go!
Taking a first look at the day's bets, it's time for the FTN Betting Show.
Welcome to the FTN Betscast for Monday, June 13th here at FTN Bets, sponsored by our good friends over at Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform today with millions of players, and now you can win on Sleeper by playing in their new over-under game. It's super easy to play. So in any sport, you're going to choose two or more players that you like and pick whether they're going to go over or under their listed total. So for example, tonight in basketball, it could be things like the number of points they score, the number of rebounds they have, maybe even the number of turnovers, number of three-pointers that they hit. Then you're going to choose an amount of money you want to enter into the contest. If you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 times your money all the way up to 20 times your money if you go 5 out of 5 and get them all correct. But the main reason I'm excited about this over-under game on Sleeper, it is the only app where I can join with my buddies and play together. It's got a built-in group chat where I can see what you're playing, you can see what I'm playing, and we can all see what all the guys in our group that have been winning have been playing. And it's insanely fun when everybody is riding it out together and rooting for the same things to happen. So stop what you're doing and download Sleeper now to play in their new over-under game. Have some fun with your friends and make some money. On your mobile phone, you can join our listener group on Sleeper at sleeper.com/FTN bets, and Sleeper will automatically match your first deposit up to $100. Again, go to sleeper.com/FTN bets, and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. There are terms and conditions that apply, so see Sleeper's terms of use for the details. We have quite a series here in the NBA going on. We have Game 5 coming up on Monday here today, and the series is tied at 2-2. Both teams have won one game at home and one game on the road this series, and they've alternated. The Celtics won games 1 and 3. The Warriors have won games 2 and 4. Whenever they go down, they always seem to have an answer for, the Celtics going up in the series. Now we're going to be switching the series back. So we'll see how we can play this all out at the end of the day here. The spread has opened on this game at Golden State Warriors -3.5, currently sitting at -110. Both ways, over and under on, let's see, DraftKings, PointsBet, and Caesars are the first three that have the lines up for this game. I'm sure we'll get some more lines up. I'm actually doing this podcast a little earlier than I normally do because I'm not going to be around here on Monday morning, but I wanted to make sure I got this out to you guys so that you can, start looking at it, start putting some bets in, and start seeing if there's any plays you might be interested in over on the Sleeper app, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So here's the way that I'm looking at this, right? Golden State Warriors 3.5-point favorite in this game. So when the games were in Boston, Celtics were anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 points. It was bouncing back and forth. So we'll go with -4 is basically what the Celtics were when they were playing their games at home here. Let's say we use 3 points for home court advantage in the NBA, which is what I've been using most of the season here. That means with the Celtics favored by 4, you take away the 3 points for home court advantage. On a neutral floor, the Celtics are about a point to a point and a half better than the Golden State Warriors, which means when the games are going to be in Golden State now, you really should have a point and a half, -3, maybe Golden State favored by like 2 to 2.5 points here. So the 3.5 points that this is sitting at even money feels a little bit too rich for my blood here. It should be more like a -2 or a -2.5, which means you got about 1 point to a point and a half of value on the Celtics at this -3. If you look at the 4 games in this series too, we haven't had a close game yet in this series. The Celtics won the first game by 12. The Warriors won the second game by 19. The Celtics came back and won the first game in Boston by 16. The Warriors came back and won the last game by 10. So 10 has been the lowest margin of victory in any game so far in this series. With that being said, I mean, if you're really looking at which side of this game you want to be on, you really want to take the team that you think is going to win, because the team that you think is going to win has been covering the spread until the spread starts getting much higher than the 3, 4, 5 points that we've seen it throughout this series so far. So if you think the Warriors are going to wind up winning this game and taking a 3-2 series lead, that would be the side that you would want to be on. For me, though, like I said, I think the Celtics are the better team on a neutral floor. So even with the home court advantage we're giving to the Golden State Warriors here, I still think the Celtics should be, maybe +2, +2.5, somewhere around there. So at plus 3.5 for the Celtics, I do think that we have a little bit of value on Boston in this game. So if I'm looking at a side here, I'm going to go with the Celtics plus 3.5. I think that's where the value is. On Sugar House and Bet Rivers right now, you can get it at minus 109. Most of the other sites have this at plus 3.5 at minus 110 right now. So again, that's the best price there. I know it's only 1 basis point. If you have to take it on a DraftKings or a Caesars or a PointsBet or something, again, 1 basis point is not going to kill you in the long run. But then again, if you do have access to Bet Rivers and Sugar House, you might as well go ahead and play it at the best number that's out there in the market. So now let's move on and talk about the total here. So the total is interesting. It opened at 212 again, and it's basically been in that range throughout the series. The lowest it's been is down in like the 210 range. The highest it's been is up in like that 216 range, and it keeps bouncing around in there. Even when it does get up into that 215 range, though, it's dropping in all those games, right? So whenever we saw it at 215, it was dropping down by the end of the day to like 213, 213 and a half, 214, somewhere in there. There hasn't been any major injuries here. Steph Curry was the one that people were worried about. But I think after he dropped 40 in game 4, we can stop worrying about whether or not Steph Curry is 100% and is going to be playing well here today. I think that this is the range that this series should be in. So that 212 and a half number, I mean, again, it's a good number. You look at the 4 games in the series. The Celtics won the first one. 228 was the total there. 195 was the total in the second game. 216 was the total in the third game. 204 was the total in the fourth game here. The 2 games that the Celtics won have gone over. 228, 216 was barely an over, but it was still an over. The 2 games that the Warriors have won, 195 and 204, both of those games have gone under. So again, maybe there's something there. It is a small sample size, but if the Warriors are going to win, the Warriors are going to win. The 2 games that they won because they played really good defense. The 2 games that they lost because they didn't play really good defense. And it really has been that simple so far in the series. So again, if you're looking at the Warriors here as the team that's probably going to win, they are favored by 3.5 points in this game. Then what you probably want to do is look at that under here. You can get that under up at 212.5 on Unibet, Sugar House, and Bet Rivers right now. And I do think there's a slight edge to the under here. Now, if you have to choose between one of them, I really do like the Celtics plus 3.5 more than I like the under 212.5. But like I said, there is some reasoning to be looking at the Warriors as the team that you want here. If you want the Warriors to win here, there is a good reason to be looking at the under 212.5, because so far the 2 games that the Warriors have won, the average final score in those 2 games has been 199.5 in this series. If the Warriors defense can step up and, keep the Celtics in check, that's going to be what the Warriors get their best chance to win. Plus getting another 30 or 40 out of Steph Curry is not going to hurt either, which is basically what he's been doing every game this series. So for me, I think there is a slight edge to the under. But if I had to choose, I think I would rather be on the side here and take Celtics plus 3.5. That's where I think the value is on this one. Let's talk about the series price here a little bit as well, because we do have 3 games left. It's basically a 3-game series left right now, right? With 2 of these home games being in Golden State. Golden State, a deserving favorite here with those parameters that we just talked about, with them being at home in 2 of the 3 games. Minus 140 is the number on Golden State. I think it's a good number. I don't think it's particularly cheap, but I also don't think it's super expensive. So I wouldn't really be looking to touch anything there. If I did anything, it would actually probably be the Celtics on the other side of this game. Celtics are plus 120 to win the series here right now. And again, if you're interested in it, that's probably the way to go. I think you're probably better off thinking that, well, if the Celtics are going to win, they're going to have to win one of these next 2 games, obviously. Otherwise, the series is going to be over. If you think that they can win this game 5, I would rather just take the money line on game 5, see if you put them in the right spot. You take the money line on game 5 and the Celtics do happen to win, you're probably going to be able to get the Warriors at plus money in game 6 with it moving back to Boston and everything else that's going on here. So for me, the only thing I'd really be looking at as far as the series price right now, I think the better side to get on is the Celtics plus 120. If you think the Celtics can make the comeback and win this series, I think that's where the most value is going to be. Remember, the series is tied up 2-2. It's not like they're down right now. So, if I think the Celtics are the better team anyway on a neutral floor, I think that Celtics plus 120 is a pretty good value, and that would be where I go with that. So now let's move on and talk about some player props here. There are 4 player props that I'm looking at. The first one, and this is a crazy number, is going to be Steph Curry over 5.5 3-pointers. Yes, I did say over 5.5 3-pointers, minus 105 on DraftKings. The number for Steph had been 4.5. I think he did that in the first quarter of game 2, and then he hit it sometime in like the third quarter, I think, of the most recent game that went off. He had 6 3-pointers in the first game, 6 3-pointers in the second game. He shot like garbage in game 3, and I'm just kidding when I say that, obviously. But he had 5 3-pointers in game 3, hit 7 3-pointers in game 4. I mean, he's the best pure shooter we've seen in the NBA. He has the all-time lead for 3-pointers hit in the playoffs. And honestly, this is what Steph Curry does. So I do like the over on that 5.5 threes. And here's the reason why. So Steph Curry has taken at least 11 3-point field goal attempts in every game that they played this series. He's actually averaging 12.5 3-point field goal attempts per game. He's 24 of 50 so far in the first 4 games of the series, which means he's shooting 48%. So at an average of 12.5 shots per game, 48%, the number that you would expect him to hit is actually 6 3-pointers. So the fact that we can get this juice down a little bit at 105 on DraftKings, definitely not something I'd be looking to play over on the sleeper app. It is a big number, but I do think that Steph Curry is capable of going over it, something that he's done in 3 of the 4 games of the series already. At minus 105, I just feel like there's a little bit of value there. So Steph Curry over 5.5 threes, the first thing I'm looking at here. There is one other play on the Golden State Warriors that I'm interested in, and that's going to be Andrew Wiggins over. Well, you know what? They actually don't have it on the sleeper app at over 6.5 rebounds, but the over 6.5 rebounds for Andrew Wiggins right now is minus 149 on Caesars, minus 150 on DK, which tells me that you're probably going to get a 7.5 number on Andrew Wiggins, probably somewhere around standard juice at minus 110 before this is all said and done. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see how this line moves in the next couple of days. Remember, Wiggins was 5.5 going into game 4. We like that over on the 5.5. He absolutely smashed that number. He ended up with like 16 rebounds. I think he had more than 6 at halftime. So we covered that prop for us before the half even came. But here's the number that I do like that Sleeper has. Sleeper has 26.5 points, rebounds, and assists available. I like the over on that 26.5 because, again, if you look at 6.5 on minus 150, minus 149, it's very likely to move up to 7.5 right there at minus 110. You look at his points prop has moved up too. It was 15.5, then it creeped to 16.5. It's up to 17.5 now, a number that I think he had 17 last game. So technically, I think he only went over this number in 2 of the 4 games that they played. He's averaging 16.5 points for the series right here. And again, if they're going to go small and, let him be a little more of a rebounder and, do a little more of his scoring that way, I think Andrew Wiggins can get over that 17.5. So over 17.5 points, that's, you need at least 18. Over 7.5 rebounds, you need at least 8. That's 26 right there. And he's had 2 assists in each of the last 3 games, which would put him up to 28. That would get him over that 26.5 with a little bit of room to spare here as well. So I like Andrew Wiggins on the sleeper app over 26.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Those are the 2 plays that I'm looking at on the Golden State Warriors. As for the Boston Celtics, there are 2 things I'm looking at here on the Celtics, and we'll start with my other favorite play on sleeper, and that's going to be Jason Tatum over 6.5 rebounds. This is sitting at minus 125 on both DraftKings and Caesars at the open. He had a double-double in the last game here. He averaged over 8 rebounds per game in the series against Miami, 5 of the 7 games going over the 6.5 rebound number. Versus Golden State so far, he had 5 rebounds in 1 game, 6 rebounds in the other 2 games. So he's actually been under this number in 3 of the 4 games that they played, but he did have 11 rebounds in that last game. So that gives him 28 rebounds for the series divided by 4, 7 rebounds per game average. So he's averaging over the 6.5 as well. He averaged 8 last series, averaging 7 this series. So over the 6.5 to get to the number that we need. The other reason why I like this is, Golden State went small in the last game. And what I mean by that is they started Otto Porter in replace of Kevon Looney, which meant that Draymond Green moved over to the center spot. So it was Draymond and Otto Porter with Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, and Steph Curry were the 5 that were out there on the floor. Now, by the end of the game, though, Kevon Looney did wind up playing, more than half the game, had a pretty good game as well. So they did still get him in there, but they didn't start him in there with the matchup. I think they were trying to get an advantage with speed going up against the, Al Horford and Robert Williams front court. And the Celtics actually made an adjustment by sitting Al Horford. He only played like 28 minutes in this game, which was lower than the amount of minutes that Robert Williams played. I think Robert Williams had like 30 or 31. So that was interesting to see. I think the Celtics are going to have to do something a little different, maybe counter by going smaller with Al Horford. Or maybe they decide to go big with Robert Williams, but put in like a Derek White who played a lot of minutes there too. The Celtics really only had, I think, 8 guys that played in this game for them. They really didn't go very deep into their bench. A lot of their starters are playing into the high 30s of minutes, which we said whenever there's a close game, that's probably going to be something that happens. So very interested to see that. And like I said, really like that Tatum over 6.5 rebounds. Probably wouldn't play it at minus 125 on DraftKings or Caesars, but I definitely do like it over on the Sleeper app. And that brings us to the last play that I'm looking at here for the Boston Celtics. And that's going to be Jaylen Brown. I actually like Jaylen Brown over 3.5 assists here. Now, this one, I'm kind of bucking the trends a little bit because under 3.5 assists is taking big money right now. It's already bid up to minus 140 on DK, minus 141 on Caesars for the under 3.5 assists. But you know what? Jaylen Brown's had 5 assists in 2 of these games. He had 3 assists in game 2. He had a bad game in game 4 with only 2 assists. But again, the Celtics didn't even score 100 points in this game. They did not play very well. And they're going to have to do some things differently. And I think one of the things they're going to do differently is get more shots and get the ball in the hands of Jaylen Brown a little more and kind of let him go to work and, either create for himself or create for some of his teammates. Also, if they start hitting a few more shots in this game, guys like Grant Williams or Al Horford or even Derek White, not to mention guys like Tatum and Marcus Smart as well. But if they start knocking down some of those shots when Jaylen Brown starts driving and drawing guys, it's going to give them more opportunities to get assists. We can get the over 3.5 assists at plus 115. And remember, over 3.5 assists is something he's done in 2 of these 4 games anyway. So if this was even money, I'd say, yeah, that's probably where it belongs. Over plus 115, the fact that we're getting a little bit of added juice to that is really the reason why I like it. It's only plus 110 on Caesars. It's as low as even money on some of the other sites here. So to get it at plus 115, not only do I like this, but this is one of the ones I want to play over on the not over on the Sleeper app, over on the sports books today, because I do think Jaylen Brown at plus 115 is a really nice value for over 3.5 assists. So there you go. That wraps it up for the early look at the player props here. Let me give you guys my sleeper play of the day. And remember, you can go down into the description here, sleeper.com/FTN bets, and that will get you into our sleeper group. And it will also make you eligible for that 100% deposit match up to your first $100 deposited. I tell everybody, if you could afford to put the $100 in, put the $100 in, get the full bonus. You'll get $200 to play with. And here's how I would spend that $200 if you're new to Sleeper and just joining us over on the Sleeper app. Remember, I like the over points, rebounds, and assists on Andrew Wiggins quite a bit. Again, my projection for him is over 28. So at 26.5, I do think there's a little value there. He had a monster game in game 4. I think he had 17 points, 16 rebounds, 2 assists, which is 35 on the PRA scale. So he's already been over this number right now. I think he was over it in a game before that as well. He might have missed it, or he was over it in either game. I think he was over it in game 3, missed it in game 2, which turned into a blowout. And in game 1, he did not have he had a really good scoring game, but he did not have as big a rebounding game. If they're going to go small, though, that kind of locks in the rebounds for me. And even in that game 1 where he didn't make it, I think he had 25 PRA without any assists. He had 0 assists in that game. He's had 2 assists in every game since. Would have put him up in that 27 range to put him over. So I like that Andrew Wiggins over 26.5 on the PRA. The second leg of the bet I'm going to be putting in is going to be Jason Tatum over 6.5 rebounds here. Remember, we love this. Minus 125 DraftKings and Caesars. Guy averaged over 8 rebounds against Miami, averaging 7 rebounds in this series, had 11 in the last game. With Golden State playing differently right now, I think we're going to get another big rebounding game out of Jason Tatum. I like that over 6.5 number, something he did in 5 of 6 games against Miami, something he did in the last game for the first time this series. But even in games that he missed at 6, 6, and 5, he's been right there in that number. So if Golden State's going to go small and give him some more rebounding opportunities, I like Jason Tatum over 6.5 rebounds. Wiggins over 26.5 PRA. Tatum over 6.5 rebounds. You'll turn a $100 deposit with the $100 free bet you get. You'll turn that $200 into $600 if both legs of this hit, meaning you put $100 out of pocket, got plus 500 odds, made a $500 profit on it. And now you got some money in the sleeper account to play with us every day, including baseball season once they bring back the the baseball over-unders over there on the sleeper app. So there you go. That's going to be my contest play for sleeper for the day. And that's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the FTN Betscast here at FTN Bets, sponsored by Sleeper. Good luck today, everybody.
Live from the new sports betting capital of the world.
You might be from Texas, but I'm from New Jersey.